everyone, and good morning. Welcome to our live feed update for September 22nd. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and I am here today on my own to not only update you on everything that happened yesterday on the Big Brother 24 live feeds, but also to walk you through Taylor's game across the entire season, because it's time for some deep dive, some game recaps here for the final three. Starting today, I'll be talking about Taylor's game across the entire season. Tomorrow, I'll talk about Monty's game. And then on Saturday, I'll probably be talking about Turner's game, considering what we expect is about to happen tonight on the eviction. So be prepared for all of that. But first, we do need to take a quick look at what happened yesterday. Day 78 in the Big Brother 24 house. Pretty much nothing. Pretty much nothing happened. They played cards all day. That's pretty much it. Monty and Taylor, they studied together. They decided to study together to ensure that they beat Turner. Further sort of I would say evidence, indication that Monty does intend to take Taylor over Turner to the final two if he were to win the final three HOH, or at least that's what it seems like at this time. They really spent a long time studying together. They ended up going over some of the past events. Taylor finally learned that Jasmine thought that she called her fat. And she was like, "What? Oh my God!" So that happened. She also she was talking. They were talking about getting an Airbnb after the season, and they were talking about who they want to come to the Airbnb. And Taylor said this.
Remember that podcast we keep talking about? Interviewed Tiffany at Todrick's house. Mm-hmm. So come through to our Airbnb, homie. Mm-hmm. Poolside interviews. So what were you thinking when you were on the block for a fifth time since Margarita was full? Well, at that point, you should know better than to sit next to me.
Don't sit next to Taylor. Shouldn't happen. That was funny. Brittany practiced her speech. She still feels like maybe there's a small chance she can flip Monty. She wants to maybe start trying reverse psychology. Hey, everyone expects you to evict me, huh? So we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, who knew? Who knew that all the way back from week one when they were talking about homies? Who knew that I'd become a homie? We'll see. We'll see how long this Airbnb idea lasts. So that's pretty much what happened yesterday on the Big Brother 24 live feeds on day 78. So now let's talk about Taylor's game throughout the entire season. And here's the thing, Taylor, about the postseason game recap. I've got it all down now. Got it all in the notes. Because, oh boy, this one took me a while. I do apologize if I'm a little out of sorts here today. I was up most of the night doing this. So let's get into it. What we do here, if you're new, if you have not experienced this before, because we're down to the final three, one of these three is going to be the winner. And I'm going to walk you through their game. What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the sort of like bare bones events of the week. Then I'm going to walk you through Taylor's involvement in the events. I'm also going to, and this is something that I started doing with Big Brother Canada 10. I'm going to give you the day that the events happen. I'm going to cite my work, essentially. I'm going to say, hey, if you want to see this, for yourself, this is the day it happened. You can go back and look it up yourself, and try to find what I'm talking about. And then after we go through the entire season, I'm going to give you a sort of summarized version of events according to sort of my own narrative perspective on how I saw the game over the course of the entire season. After I put this all together, I take a look at everything and I say, okay, so this is sort of where I see the whole sort of thrust of the game moving, and then just sort of a cap on the end of it, talking about the player, talking about their chances to win and stuff like that. So let's get into it. Week 1, night 1. Of course, Daniel wins that first HOH. And he is going to pretty quickly determine that he's targeting Michael. But there's going to be a few things that happen. Of course, the girls are going to come together and they want to target Joseph, but Daniel doesn't want to target any strong guys. And so, we have a strange house. The house is sort of figuring out where they want to go. The girls is the first alliance that comes together. And immediately they are going to come together to exclude Taylor and Nicole, who they label girls. Really, for Taylor, from the second she walked into the game, she dealt with multiple people prejudging her. In just the first 2 days, she was called a firecracker, a guy's girl. She was called condescending. And it was speculated a couple of times that she was the kind of person that would blow up if you messed with her. So immediately dealing with the issue of the color of her skin, the fact that she is a woman who was a quote unquote pageant girl, dealing with what is likely some jealousy, and yes, the fact that she was the pageant girl was leaked ahead of time for the cast, seemed to play some amount of roles in these prejudgments that really did not allow her to exist comfortably in the house. Which is, of course, very unfortunate. So the girls alliance forms on night 1 specifically to exclude her and Nicole, who are labeled girls. Specifically, though, Taylor is singled out as being a pageant girl. They need to avoid her. Meanwhile, and that happens, of course, again, day 1. Meanwhile, Taylor's plan is to work with the women. That is specifically what she wants to do. And she says as much on day 1. And later in the night, she's actually going to bond with Joseph, talk about how she wants to work with the women. She also makes an attempt to bond with the women on day 2. She talks to the women, talks about wanting to work with the women, but it's immediately met with skepticism. She has already been prejudged. She has already sort of like gotten the label of guy's girl from the women. And there is genuine suspicion that the fact that she is now talking to the women on day 2, they think that this is fake, that she is faking being a girl's girl, and she is, in fact, spying for the men on day 2. So, with all of this in mind, she becomes a pretty quick house pariah. As again, from the girls angle, she's seen as a guy's girl, somebody not to be trusted. From some of the guys, they are the ones talking about how she is potentially somebody that is going to blow up, somebody not to be trifled with. That she will make your life a living hell if you put her on the block or if you mess with her, because as we've gotten to know Taylor, that really sounds like her, right? So she is an early option for nomination as a pawn. That Daniel as the HOH, again, somewhat quickly comes around to the idea of wanting to target Michael, but he doesn't know who to put on the block next to Michael. He does consider Taylor. But the women think that despite the fact that they don't like Taylor, they would like for a man to leave first. So in addition to that, Nicole doesn't think that Taylor should go up on the block. Nicole was not a part of the girls, was not a part of the anti-Taylor stuff yet. And she actually felt kind of decent about Taylor at this point and actively campaigned to prevent her from going up on the block here on day 3. Now, things get a little tricky. Daniel is going to go ahead and nominate Terrence and Michael, with Michael as his target. And at this point, Michael has already been included in a different alliance called Mamba and has the votes to stay. Daniel doesn't know this, which, I mean, dude, you're the first HOH. You're already targeting somebody that has the votes to stay. Okay. All right. But Michael and Brittany are on the block. Taylor is actually going to end up bonding with Michael and Brittany on day 3, specifically over their enjoyment of the show. Michael and Brittany, both fans of the show. Taylor, a recent convert, came to the show because of the cookout last season. And she tells Michael that she wants to keep him in the game. And she tells Brittany that she wants to work with the women. This bond, this strategic connection and personal bond is extremely important to Taylor's game throughout the season. And she very quickly is going to want to work with Michael and Brittany. And you can contrast that later with Turner's game recap, who got an actual proposition from them and went, no, gross. So, at the prompting of the other women, on day 4, things get a little messy because Taylor is going to do a fashion show and offer some of her clothes to the other women. She is then immediately demonized for having worn her finale dress. She is called arrogant. Again, this was prompted by the other members of the house, by many of the other women in the house. And to be fair to some of them, not all of them were on board with this demonization, including some of the people that did, in fact, push for her to wear the dress in the first place. Alyssa, in particular, seemed to be the most like, wait, why are we mad at this? Alyssa was one of the least anti-Taylor people after the first couple of days, but then, got a little jealous. So things kind of build from here, because not only does the house feel like, oh, she wore a dress that she was supposed to wear on finale night. How dare she? But in addition to that, Turner was also upset with her. This was another big strike against her early on, because she told him to do his dishes. And just the gall. Like, who do you think you are? My mother? Why should Turner have to do his dishes? This is the thing, the dishes. This is what flips Nicole against Taylor. This is the first thing. This is specifically Turner and Pooch use the dishes argument with Nicole, and that seems to be what flips her against Taylor. Then things continue to spiral because Jasmine is going to pipe in as well, saying, oh, you think that's bad? Taylor called me fat. Because of a conversation that they were having about modeling. And at this point, Pooch is going to tell Daniel that, and while all this is happening as well, it's worth noting, Michael's going to win the veto. Michael's going to win the veto, and that means that there needs to be a replacement nominee. And all of this is already stirring up. All of this is already starting to build, and Pooch, Turner, and the rest of the men are going to make a hard push for Taylor to go up on the block. And one of the ways they're going to do that is that Pooch is going to tell Daniel that they should take the opportunity to take Taylor out now, because then they'll only have to deal with her blowing up for a few days instead of a whole week. And if you thought that wasn't enough, that does seem to be enough to convince Daniel to go ahead and put Taylor on the block. But Monty is then also going to approach Paloma about a conversation he had with Taylor that morning, where he felt like she was saying Paloma was coming after him. Things explode from here into a massive Taylor bash fest. If I told you everything that was said that night, we would be here all day. The night ends with Taylor crying in the bathroom here on day 4. This all culminates. And she is now going to be named the replacement nominee due to the fact that, she's going to blow up. And so this is a great opportunity to take her out. And the whole house feels like she is a terrible person who is calling people fat and arrogant and condescending and just so awful. Just terrible. So on day 5, the Taylor hate continues to build steam. Alyssa, and this is what I was talking about, Alyssa at this point is actually one of the more vocal dissenters. She's going to go around and be like, I don't understand why everyone's so negative about Taylor right now. I don't think the dress thing was a big deal. But pretty much everybody she talks about shoots her down and says, no, it's not just the dress thing. It's all these other things as well. And she continues to try to talk to people about it, but nobody will really engage her. Nobody is willing to sort of accept that maybe they've gone a little overboard about Taylor. Daniel, though, does begin to worry a little bit. Daniel begins to worry that, hold on, Terrence is on the block. And now Michael's coming off. I'm going to put Taylor on the block. Am I going to look racist? Dude. Racist? But don't worry, Daniel. Monty reassures him. He says, not racist. The Taylor nomination is justified. And look, Monty says, I will go down swinging, defending you, Daniel. That is what I will do. Again, the rest of the house continuing to be anti-Taylor. Joseph, at this time, does say, I haven't had any negative experience with Taylor personally, but I trust Monty's word on this, so I'll accept it for now. I don't think Monty would lie. Michael feels guilty. He doesn't hate Taylor, but he is not really saying anything against the Taylor hate, and actually intentionally joined in one time in order to fit in, but he feels bad because he knows it's not right, and he's just trying to play the game, and he's not sure what he wants to do. He certainly doesn't want to do it again. That's kind of where Michael is standing. Those are really the only two people. Brittany, of course, was sort of involved in the conversation night 1, but didn't really say anything either. She's not going to comment too much on most of the Taylor hate through this time. She's kind of dealing with her own thing at this point. Through all of it, Taylor is kept in the dark, but it doesn't completely go past her that, again, she was crying in the bathroom the night before. People are treating her strangely, and it doesn't feel good. This is all on day 5, of course. On day 6, Taylor is nominated as the replacement for Michael. She is confronted by Amira about what she said to Monty. She's told that she's making the house uncomfortable, that she can take this opportunity to learn about what she's done and make up for it. Amira asks her about the Monty conversation. Taylor explains herself. She was just trying to link to bond somebody she thought could be an ally in Monty, and somebody that she thought was an ally in Paloma. And after explaining herself, the women who learn about it go, "Oh, that does make sense." She still has to go, though. She's done a lot of other bad stuff. And Taylor's actually criticized for not doing more to figure out the bad things that she's done and make up for them, despite the fact that, yes, it was day 78 yesterday on the feeds when she finally learned about calling Jasmine fat. It's Brittany that finally lets Taylor know that Paloma has been spreading a lot of this information here on day 6. And again, this Brittany, Taylor, Michael connection is really going to pull her through week 1 when nobody else is really going to give her the time of day. For the rest of the week, Taylor's campaigns are mostly met with derision and laughter. Genuinely, she campaigns to Monty and he brings it to Amira and a few others, and they literally laugh at her attempts to campaign. The whole house will be voting her out come eviction night if given the chance, which, of course, they weren't. So some of the other things happening, of course, around this time, Michael, again, wins the veto. The girls did try to get Joseph on the block, but ultimately it's Oasis that succeeds in getting Taylor on the block. Oasis being the guys' alliance that Pooch started. The girls are fine with Taylor as a secondary target. And Taylor is, again, the person that is planned to be voted out at this point. The eviction, though, is canceled when Paloma leaves the game. Now, Taylor, yes, would have been voted out here on week 1 in the first eviction. However, the twist ultimately would have ended with, I think, Paloma leaving anyway. At that point in the game, despite the fact that Pooch did have a decent bond with Paloma, he also had a bond with Alyssa, and Paloma had been acting erratic in the days leading up to her leaving the game. And given that Pooch was going to make a decision between Alyssa and Paloma, which one would compete against Taylor in a competition that Taylor did very well at, I believe he would have picked Paloma and Taylor would have beaten Paloma. Even if he had picked Alyssa, we know straight up that Taylor beat Alyssa. Either way, there's no reason to believe that Taylor would not have ended up surviving this vote, and really not much reason to believe that it would have changed much at all anyway. But, of course, the twist being there in the first place is definitely what saved Taylor here in the first week. So that's week 1. You had the girls form. You had Mamba form. Mamba, which was Paloma's alliance. Paloma, Alyssa, Amira, with Monty, Michael, and Kyle. The first big major alliance of the season. By the end of the week, they were no longer allowed to call themselves Mamba. They ended up calling themselves Bleep, the Bleep Alliance. That is what they are currently called at this point. Also, of course, the Rogue Rats were formed with Daniel and Nicole. And Oasis, again, was the guys' alliance. Within Oasis, there was what eventually was called Inception for a brief period of time, which was Turner, Pooch, and Daniel. So these are some of the major alliances heading into week 2 in the game. In week 2, after Taylor survives week 1, Jasmine is going to win the HOH, and she immediately wants to target Taylor. Taylor is her immediate target. So when she targets Taylor, Pooch is going to volunteer as a pawn to ensure that Taylor leaves. He doesn't want to give her a chance to even compete this time. He needs her gone. The rest of Bleep, which is now called Pose Pack, after Paloma left, and includes Nicole as a replacement for Paloma, they actually think it's dumb to target Taylor when Pooch is right there, and they know that Oasis exists because Monty let them know. He told them about Oasis. So Amira pitches to Jasmine that, hey, why don't we just take out Pooch? Jasmine is convinced, and Pooch ends up on the block with Taylor. If Pooch wins the veto, though, Taylor is a great backup target. That's sort of the plan there. So for Taylor, she, again, is immediately targeted by Jasmine. You can see this on day 9. After being nominated, she does something that is interesting. She recognizes her position. She starts publicly targeting Monty. She knows that the girls at this point, because Brittany told her, she knows that the girls think that she's a guy's girl. And so in order to combat that notion, she is going to publicly say to the women a bunch, hey, I'm after the guys. I'm targeting Monty. So she says, I'm targeting Monty. And despite, clearing things up a bit with him, he seems to still be targeting her. So it makes sense for her to target him. Plus, at this point, she's heard that the women thought that she was a guy's girl again, and she wants to prove them she's all for the women. In reality, she has no intention of winning HOH. She says to the cameras, I'm not going to win HOH. She just wants people in the game to think that they can use her. And this is a large part of why Pose Pack is going to back off of the idea of targeting her. Not only is Pooch up there as a potential reason, as a potential alternative, and he is part of Oasis, but in addition to that, the women of Pose Pack feel that Taylor is an asset to their game. And this is very important because if Taylor doesn't do this, the pushback from the men of Pose Pack very likely could have gone through. But it's Taylor wanting to target the men, wanting to target Monty in particular, that allows, that gives Nicole and Amira the motivation to keep Taylor in the face of Monty pushing back, trying to take Taylor out. It just makes the women feel more comfortable. It is a bit of a double-edged sword because Amira tells Monty that Taylor wants him out, and this adds fuel to Monty's fire to take her out, and spends a lot of time trying to convince the women of Pose Pack to vote Taylor out instead of Pooch. But, of course, it doesn't work. And these things all happen day 10 and 11. Daniel, Nicole, and Terrence on day 10 are going to start blaming Taylor for Paloma's eviction and her mental health deterioration. This happens on day 10. This is important for later. Taylor is going to admit to having a little bit of a crush on Daniel on day 12, if you can remember that saga. On days 13 and 14, Michael and Brittany are going to start talking about pulling Taylor in long term. They've continued to bond with her over the last week, and Brittany proposes a 3-person alliance with Taylor and warns her again that the women are just using her and that they're both at the bottom. Remember, again, Taylor has bonded with Michael and Brittany. She feels like she is strategically connected to them. And Brittany at this point, again, is going to propose that they officially work together and warn Taylor, hey, the women are just using you to target the men. Now, I don't think Brittany realized that's kind of what Taylor was hoping for. It wasn't really something that she needed to know because she already kind of knew, but was good information either way. Definitely helps solidify in Taylor's mind that that the women are just using her. Taylor also talks to Michael about it the next day. This is the day 14 part of it. She tells him that she thinks Monty and Kyle have a final 2 and that something needs to be done about it, meaning I still want to target Monty. So Michael, of course, is going to win the veto. He's not going to use it. And for the rest of the week, the blind side holds and Pooch is eventually evicted. But in the meantime, Taylor is going to do at least one more thing here. She has a long conversation with Monty on day 15 about colorism, about her life, about her passions, her goals, motivations. It seems to win him over. After the conversation, he accepts that she can stay. He goes downstairs and he says, you know what? I think that it's fine to keep Taylor. After spending many days trying to push Taylor out because he wanted to keep Pooch around. He comes around on Taylor's. Taylor's a very successful bonding conversation with Monty. He even talks to Kyle about trying to pull her in, and get this, using her to take some of the shots that they've been talking about. Now, at this point, they've been talking about taking some shots within their own alliance because they're frustrated that their own alliance won't budge on Taylor. It's very important to note that Taylor is so successful at pitching herself as a tool to be used in the game that the women push Monty and Kyle so hard that they no longer really want to work with the women of Postpack. And then the men of Postpack, Monty and Kyle, want to then use Taylor themselves to take a shot at the women. The idea of Taylor being used by either side here is a large part of what causes the split in this alliance. In fact, I would say the primary part of what causes the split in their alliance. They both want to be the side that uses Taylor. So the rest of the week, again, goes through as planned. The blind side happens. Pooch is evicted. Bleep becomes Postpack. And a couple of weird little things are happening. Within Postpack, there's some division. And because of that, an alliance called Old School is created. This is Jasmine, who is the HOH this week, Terrence, Amira, Nicole, and Alyssa. Old School. It has one meeting. Very big impact on the game. In addition to that, of course, Michael, Brittany, and Taylor are coming together. Michael, Brittany, and Kyle are also coming together. And then Kyle and Monty are still very locked in together. They don't have an official sort of final two at this point, but they are very much in lockstep, trying to work within Postpack, trying to work outside of Postpack as well. So we head into week 3, where Turner is going to win the HOH, and the bestie twist is going to start. Bestie twist, perhaps one of the worst twists they've ever come up with. Postpack immediately is going to game it. The pairs become Turner and Jasmine, Nicole and Taylor, Amira and Terrence, Michael and Brittany, Daniel and Kyle, Monty and Joseph, and then Indy and Alyssa. Now, because of the besties twist, the Postpack gets a second wind. And Taylor is going to default to the target again because she is the lowest hanging fruit. She had done a great job of getting two sides to want to use her to take shots at the other side. And there was a big split happening, but the bestie twist really just glued the two sides back together into Postpack. And they were like, so wait, who do we target now? I guess, yeah, Taylor. We're still going to target Taylor. And so when Turner wins that HOH, they end up getting Jasmine to convince Turner that it was actually Taylor that was behind the vote flip against Pooch. He buys it and decides he's going to put Michael and Brittany up on the block in an attempt to backdoor Taylor. So that's kind of what's happening generally at the start of this week. From Taylor's point of view here. I forgot to do this as well. By the way, in week 1, Taylor got an average score of 5 on the stock watch. Despite being on the block, we felt very comfortable that she would stay. She would have gotten a 4, but Amon gave her a controversial 10. She ends up with a 5 on the stock watch in week 1. In week 2, she ends up with a 4 because she is still an outcast. Really, the stock watch ratings happen on Tuesdays. I really think that by the end of that week, she would have received a higher score. She had done some good work, but that happened before the conversation with Monty, which was a very good one and really put her in a much better position. So by the time we get into week 3, the stock watch is appropriately adjusted. She gets a 7 in week 3. Very good stuff. Despite, again, being the immediate target initially, things are looking up for her because of reasons we'll talk about, of course. So she gets a 7 in the stock watch, and she is going to get paired up with Nicole. She gets paired up with Nicole because Nicole sees her as the safest person to be sitting next to on the block. We'll see how that goes. She's targeted by most of Postpac. Pretty much everyone in Postpac, apart from Michael, target her in the early portion of this week because Postpac has come back together because of the bestie twist. Postpac, again, is going to get Jasmine to just completely snow Turner into thinking that Taylor was behind the vote flip against Pooch. The way that she tries to make this argument is that she says that it was Taylor who leaked the Oasis stuff, and it was the Oasis stuff that caused the vote to flip at the last minute, and thus Taylor was behind the vote flip. Turner believes her and is going to, again, target Taylor by nominating Brittany and Michael as pawns to backdoor her. This all happens on day 16. Taylor's fortunes, though, reverse when Kyle reveals to Turner and Joseph that it was actually Amira that flipped the vote and that she is leading an alliance in the game, running the whole game. The pound is created and the plan shifts to backdooring Amira. This happens on day 17. This is a very big turning point in the game, of course. This is, Joseph is going to turn 25 at around this time. Taylor is then going to be picked to play in the veto on day 18. And Nicole, who still feels like Taylor is the target, freaks out about having to throw the competition and about how she feels she's going to be portrayed as being mean to Taylor, like a bad person. Everyone thinks she's upset about her mom because she's crying in the room, talking with Daniel, and that something bad might have happened. Of course, Taylor, this is the moment where Taylor is going to try to get Monty to pray, even though she's not particularly religious. Eventually Taylor is going to come in, say, hey, you do what you need to do for your mental health, whatever you need. And then they're going to play in the veto. Nicole throws the veto as she planned to. And Michael and Brittany are going to win the veto. After the veto, Nicole and Daniel are going to confront Taylor for trying to get her to quit the game and accuse her of doing the same thing to Paloma. This is the big blow up, of course, that was very dramatic on the episodes, and again, a big turning point in the game. After the events of the day, Turner is having second thoughts. After the big blow up, even though Turner had just made the pound and they were talking about taking out Amira, Turner decides, I can't do it, guys. I'm sorry. People are going to be so mad at me if I don't target Taylor. So I'm just going to need you guys to do it next week for me instead. I'm going to target Taylor. I'm not going to do the Amira thing. And it's actually, of course, Kyle and Joseph that keep him on track and eventually convinced Turner to follow through with the plan and go ahead and go after Amira. So then we're going to get to on day 18, the leftovers come together. Kyle and Joseph, they round up the house. They get everyone together. Taylor's the last person to come in the room. They explain most of the game that's been played to this point. They talk about the various alliances. They don't immediately talk about Postpac, but they soon will following this. They tell Taylor, it's time to take back control. It's time to give you space to be who you really are. Because you have been treated unfairly, and it's time to rectify that. The thing that surprises Taylor the most of all the information that she learns is that Terrence was not on her side. She really felt like Terrence was like chill, and apparently he's not. The rest she had already suspected that she was on the outs and all of that. She says, I'm in. And they celebrate. Leftovers! Kyle says, this is Big Brother 24. This is the moment. And it was the moment. Again, day 18. So after this, Ameerah is their target. After Ameerah, Taylor wants to target Daniel and Nicole, especially after the big confrontation. Despite this, she does still have a number of lengthy conversations with them both about what happened and allows them to apologize and talk through it. This is very important. This is a very Taylor thing to do. Even when she has altercations, when she has situations with people, she is always going to talk to them afterward. She's going to have conversations with them. She is going to be very open, very welcoming, and allow them to feel good enough about her and themselves. These two conversations happen day 19 and day 21. And yes, we could certainly put apologize in quotation marks. So Turner is going to go ahead and nominate Ameerah and gives a speech about bullying aimed at Daniel, Nicole, and perhaps also Indy at this point. She is blindsided, of course, and the house is thrown into chaos. Taylor is going to convincingly act surprised when Ameerah goes up instead of her. Many people in the house are going to, after Turner's speech about bullying, stumble over themselves talking about how they actually love Taylor and have defended her. And it's not too long. It doesn't last too long, though, because the leftovers are going to pretend to continue to target her. So a couple of things worth pointing out here. This is all on day 20. Taylor, in the lead up to the creation of the leftovers, is also going to be doing a lot of work to advocate for herself. She is going to talk about how she was actually Miss Congeniality, and she's actually like a pretty chill person. And again, she's been talking about colorism. She's been talking about the various ways that she thinks she has not been given a fair shake at the game. And again, we'll continue to talk about this, but the idea that she just doesn't give a good first impression is absurd. It's not like first impressions are a sort of like very easy objective thing that you can measure of like, this is a good one, this is a bad one. First impressions are exactly where racial, gender biases will show up, right? Like that, for a bad first impression is precisely where you look for those things. So if you are placing the onus on the person who is supposedly giving a bad first impression, you are literally blaming somebody for blaming a victim of racism for racism, which is very absurd. Please don't do that. Please don't be in my mentions doing that. So Taylor advocates for herself, and eventually, for the first time, Turner is going to stand up publicly and advocate and add his voice to hers and advocate for her as well. So again, the interesting thing that this does to the house is that, as I said, they're all going to talk about like, whoa, I wasn't the bully. I didn't do that. It was Indy, right? It was Indy. And Indy's going to be like, it wasn't me. It was Daniel, obviously. They're all, again, stumbling over themselves to argue about how they were not bad to Taylor. And this is important because it matters more, especially as we get later in the game. So again, though, even though this could be a big turnaround for Taylor's game, it ends up not being quite the turnaround that you might have hoped because, as I said, the leftovers are going to continue to pretend to target her and be against her. And because they are like going along with that ride, Taylor doesn't get to sort of like come out as a non-social pariah anymore. Even as the non-leftover people are like, oh my God, I actually love Taylor. Many of the people within the leftovers, including Monty, including Joseph, are going, oh, no, we still hate Taylor. Don't get it wrong. We still want Taylor out. we're just doing whatever, right? Like, we're still voting Taylor out. And even after they didn't vote Taylor out, they are going to, because Taylor's not even on the block, but like, oh, well, Amira's on the block now. So, we're going to do this. Don't worry. We're going to target Taylor next week. It does not give her the space to enter the game in the way that she would like. However, she doesn't waste any time trying to shore up relationships within the leftovers. And this is, again, vitally important when we talk about her success in the game. You'd be very surprised at how quickly she is going to make some connections. Literally within days 20 and 21, she is going to bond with Turner, expressing how grateful she is for his speech. He is going to open up to her about owning a thrift store, something that he hasn't told many people in the game. They really connect, they really bond, and it's a solid connection for her to have within the leftovers. She also is going to approach Michael about what they've talked about before, working together with Brittany. She says she doesn't want to jump the gun, but she hopes that he can see who she would like to have in the final three. And they end up locking that in, a final three with Michael, Brittany, and Taylor, something that is vitally important for her later success in the game. She also has a long personal conversation with Joseph. They had bonded in the past, but now that their game relationship has aligned, they're able to get much closer, and she is able to grab Joseph as a connection as well. She also talks to Brittany about everything that happened with the girls in the early portion of the week, and they really bond. Again, now that there's a group and a strategic connection, all of these little bonds that she had created are opening up to strategic relationships. And she positions herself very well within the leftovers immediately within the first few days of the leftovers being created. They discuss how her and Brittany discuss how they'll be able to get the stronger players in the alliance to take shots at each other and slide to the end. That's sort of her first look at the strategy of working in the leftovers, is hoping that the bigger players will take shots at each other and that she'll be able to, with perhaps Brittany, slide in to the end. And they end up making a final two, Taylor and Brittany. So again, very, very big stuff for Taylor's game here in week 3. Joseph is going to come up with a plan to cause chaos the day of the vote. He wants Taylor to tell Terrence that she overheard Kyle and Amira saying something about Pose Pack. She ends up doing it, but not without some frustration that she continues to be used as a scapegoat in all of these plans. This happens on day 23. So the blindside happens. The leftovers orchestrate this split vote, blindside Amira, and she leaves. Terrence ends up joining Monty and Joseph's bestie group, which helps lock in their safety with the leftovers and how the twist works. And over the course of the week, of course, Pose Pack is going to be broken up. The Pound is formed. The Leftovers is formed. Michael and Brittany are going to officially make a final two amongst themselves. They're going to make a final three with Taylor, and then Taylor and Brittany are also going to make a final two. So here it is. They've made it through the week. Taylor in a much better position within her alliance, but outside of her alliance, her social game is still anchored to this notion that she is a social outcast, that the leftovers are not doing anything to counter. So we head into week 4, where Taylor is going to get a 7 again in the stock watch. Monty is going to win the HOH, and he is going to nominate Alyssa and Indy with a fake story about how he intends to backdoor Taylor, but in reality, he plans to send out Nicole. There's a lot of anger toward Taylor for Amira's eviction.
Taylor?
What? Taylor? How did she do this one? That anger is actually being fanned by the leftovers, again, who are continuing to pretend that they're anti-Taylor. The initial plan is for Taylor to go up next to Nicole initially on the block, but Taylor pushes back and tries to get Alyssa and Indy nominated initially instead. She ends up succeeding. They go along with what she wants. The plan is to still say that she's the backdoor target, though. This happens on day 23. So Also on day 23, Taylor's going to fully lock in her final 3 with Michael and Brittany. And Michael and Brittany are going to, then Daniel and Kyle are going to win the veto. Timeline. First, Brittany and Michael are going to talk to Taylor about switching up the plan. Because if they can convince Indy to join their bestie group, then they can be safe because of how the bestie groups work, right? So Michael and Brittany are the most vulnerable because you can only put a group on the block. So you have to put people up on the block together if they're in a group. If Michael and Brittany can convince Indy to join their group by voting out Alyssa, then they will always be safe because they'll always have the numbers to vote out Indy over one of them if they do end up going on the block. It's a weird thing with this whole twist. So Taylor agrees with them and says they should switch it up. Then Daniel and Kyle end up winning the veto. She makes a case to Monty about switching up the plan and taking out Alyssa, but he remains locked on Nicole for now. So she regroups with Michael and Brittany and the next day, Michael is going to make a more effective pitch. He says it's actually in Monty's best interest to do this and take out Alyssa because we don't know the rules of the bestie twist. For all we know, it might be that the person left in a bestie group has to choose one of you 3 to join with them and make another group of 2 instead of making another group of 3 or perhaps even 4. So if that happens, then Taylor would be forced to take Terrence from you, and then you might be vulnerable again, Monty. Monty goes, oh, well, I'm going to be vulnerable. Okay, I agree then. The plan should change. We should evict Alyssa. They just need to convince Daniel to not use the veto. This happens day 25 and 26. So Taylor, unfortunately, though, ends up blindsided when Daniel does end up using the veto, and she ends up going up next to Nicole on the block on day 27. This is, of course, because of a couple of reasons. One being that Daniel doesn't believe Monty. He thinks that he is setting him up, and Kyle is not going to go along with the plan and try to convince Daniel to use or to not use the veto. So she ends up going up on the block, blindsided by it, not pleased. And Kyle apologizes to her afterward, claims that he did everything he could. So Taylor starts campaigning. She tells Alyssa and Indy that she wants to join their bestie group. She makes some campaigns around the house. Alyssa seems to be convinced. Alyssa actually seems to want to vote out Nicole over Taylor. But every time she talks to Kyle about it, he refuses to give her any information or any indication of where he might lean. In fact, he continues to tell her he's voting out Taylor. So she's not really able to go anywhere with it. Indy, on the other hand, wants nothing to do with Taylor. Wants her gone, wants her out, does not want her to be in the bestie group. She thinks that she'll then have to be associated with Taylor and targeted with Taylor, and she wants nothing to do with it. Jasmine is kind of convinced. Jasmine actually feels like it might be better to keep Taylor, at least at first, on day 28. Terrence, though, doesn't want Taylor to stay. Terrence wants Nicole to stay. So some mixed results with the campaigning, but some decent work convincing Alyssa and Jasmine, at least here at first on day 28. So Kyle is going to start pitching to Michael and Brittany on days 27 and 28 that, hey, we should make something outside of the leftovers. Do you really want to go to 7 with these people? Kyle, not super pleased about the whole Alyssa situation. The idea that he should have convinced Daniel to not use the veto and take Alyssa out, his showmance, he's not super down for it. And he's going to start pitching to Michael and Brittany days 27 and 28 that they should do something else. They're down, and they suggest, why don't we include Taylor in these conversations? Why don't we bring Taylor in? Kyle, at this time, is okay with it. Kyle, at this time, feels, yeah, we could pull Taylor in. That could make some sense. There's a period of time here where Kyle, Michael, Brittany, Taylor, Alyssa, and Turner might have become a thing. But it doesn't. Indy is going to make an unsuccessful push to get Taylor out on days 27 and on day 30. Days 27 and day 30. Days 27 and 30, or days 29 and 30. Again, lack of sleep. She says, if Taylor stays, Taylor will be the reason that I go home, and she will win this game. Hear my words. So Nicole is voted out, and Taylor joins Alyssa and Indy's bestie group. So here in this week, we see a couple of changes in the alliances, right? Kyle and Turner make a final two this week. There's a loose grouping of Kyle, Turner, Brittany, Michael, Taylor, Alyssa, again, that almost happens here. Alyssa, Jasmine, and Indy really become a solid trio at this point, and Terrence is going to really bunker down with Daniel. So we're then going to head into week 5, where Taylor, for the third week in a row, is going to get a 7 in the stock watch. Solid positioning, solid social work. It's just overall looking pretty good from Taylor. She's not running the game or anything. She's not like making any huge moves. She's still isolated from the other side of the house for the most part, but very well positioned and solidly locked in within the alliance, and has a decent path forward through the game. Michael is going to win the HOH. His immediate plan is that he wants to put Monty, Joseph, and Terrence on the block. And if they come down, backdoor Daniel. If they don't come down, take out Terrence. Or maybe if we can, take out Monty. Who knows? That's his plan. Throughout the week, though, Kyle is going to pitch to him that he could see a Cookout 2.0 forming. And this is important, of course. This is a very important part of the game. Kyle pitches to Michael. You could see a Cookout 2.0 forming. Michael says, I don't think so. He says, I think I don't see Taylor as that close with Joseph and Monty. Taylor is the sort of the sticking point against this theory. He says, I think Taylor is with us. Remember, they'd been talking about a group of 6 that included Taylor. But now Kyle is starting to say, I don't know. I think Taylor might be with them. Michael disagrees, though. This is on day 30. Michael is going to tell the cameras that he loves Taylor. She's one of his favorite people in the house. He hopes the audience loves her because she's amazing. He says, I do, though, think she's a threat to win this game. And he discusses with he discusses with Brittany the option of taking a shot at Monty. He discusses with Brittany and Taylor that all 3 of them potentially take a shot at Monty. And Taylor agrees with Michael. She would still like to take a shot at Monty. This happens day 31 and day 32. So days after Kyle creates this theory, Taylor is still very much on board and actually pushing for Monty to be taken, for somebody to take a shot at Monty. So worth noting. Monty, Joseph, and Terrence are in fact going to be nominated, of course. Michael is going to win the veto, and Terrence throws it to him, which wild. So he decides it's not worth taking a shot at Monty because he can use the fact that everyone on the other side was targeting Monty to make sure that he's locked into the leftovers. He's not concerned about Monty, gathering up the troops like Kyle thinks he will, because Terrence just threw the veto trying to get him out, and then everybody on the other side just came up and pitched for him for Monty to leave. It's become very clear that Kyle is off his rocker. Kyle, though, is going to continue to pitch to Michael and Brittany that he's concerned that Taylor is with Monty and Joseph. This is really the sticking point, the thing they keep coming back to. Michael and Brittany keep saying, maybe you're right about the other stuff. Maybe. But Taylor is not with them. And Kyle just doesn't believe it. They think Turner is more with the guys than Taylor is, and Kyle disagrees. This is on day 32. The trash talking of Taylor, of course, has not slowed down in the last few weeks. It's just not always super relevant to be talking about it, but we are still getting things like she's really working the men like a hoe on a stroll, like a mule on a carrot. That's on day 32. She does start getting closer to Joseph on days 33 and 34. And Alyssa really starts pitching like, hey, you guys should be in a showmance. You guys should kiss. And that's because Alyssa, of course, wants another showmance in the house. Joseph tells her that Alyssa needs to go. She's trying to push this thing on us. This is not good. We need to get rid of Alyssa. Again, days 33 and 34. Kyle tells the cameras on day 34 that he thinks he will lose to Taylor in the final two. Multiple instances of people in the game thinking that Taylor has a great chance to win a jury vote. Long before the jury even started. There's another day of, honestly, like excruciating day of poor treatment from Terrence and Daniel. And Taylor at the end of day 35 is going to tell the cameras, you know what? I think I'm a lot more traumatized by this experience than I had thought. I think, again, like she's walking into rooms and people are turning their backs to her. They are, cracking jokes about her as she leaves rooms. It's very obvious to her, especially from Terrence and Daniel, like what's happening. And it's really starting to get to her after 35 days. On day 36, Michael and Brittany start to become a little bit concerned about this Joseph and Taylor showmance thing. They don't want Taylor to pick Joseph over them. Meanwhile, on the same day, she is considering if Joseph would accept a final two deal as she talks to the cameras. Also on day 36, Joseph is going to play up that he's playing Taylor to Indy and Jasmine, who think it's funny. He goes to them and says, yeah, Taylor, she's like so into me, but don't worry about it. I'm just, kind of using her for the game. And Taylor does keep talking to Jasmine and Indy throughout all of this. And Taylor's plan at this point is to pretend still that she's targeting Monty. So that's kind of where that ends up. Michael, of course, is going to use the veto against what the other side of the house wants, and puts up Daniel and Kyle. And then Daniel is going to be voted out. The bestie twist is going to end. So that's the end of week 5. Joseph and Taylor, again, get closer in this week. The 5 swatters is also created at the end of this week here, week 5. So we head into week 6, where Taylor wins the HOH. Joyous occasion for Taylor's game, right? She's going to get a 4 in the stock watch this week. This was probably her worst week of the entire game, gameplay-wise. Her target is Terrence. Let's walk this through, right? She wins HOH. She quickly promises all of the women safety. She wants to target Terrence. He's proven to her too many times he's never going to work with her. So she pretends to the other side that she's going to backdoor Monty. She suggests to both Monty and Turner that they could be used as pawns. They are like, I don't know. They don't like it. Her relationship with Turner after suggesting she uses him as a pawn honestly never really recovers. She had a great relationship with him. After this moment, it never gets back to where it was, and things are going to get worse before they get any better. She is eventually convinced to put up Terrence and Indy. Most of the alliance, though, would prefer to see Indy gone over Terrence, which is not her target, but she's fine with it. What they really want is for Jasmine to leave, which she is not fine with. She doesn't want to be responsible for sending a black woman home when there are other options. The response to that within the alliance is totally respect that reasoning. Absolutely respect that reasoning. Definitely don't disagree with that reasoning. But oh my God, why won't she do it? India is very upset about going on the block at Taylor's hands when she has been a defender of Taylor all season long. These events occur over days 37 and 38. Part of the issue here, of course, is that as Taylor explains herself, she doesn't really know what to do as the HOH. She doesn't really know what to do with the power. And she's relying really heavily on guidance from the people closest to her. Brittany and Michael don't provide a lot of that guidance. They are subtle gamers. They don't like to push too hard. It's interesting calling Brittany subtle, but I said it. In comparison, at least, to somebody like Joseph, who is very comfortable going around doing all kinds of stuff, right? And so Joseph ends up being the person giving her the most amount of guidance by far. And this becomes clear to Brittany and Michael. They are still threatened by both Joseph's connection to Taylor and his connection to the other side with the five swatters. They're starting to look at Joseph as a huge threat to win the game and a huge threat to interfere with their game plans. So they want the five swatters broken up. They approach Taylor about it. They get Taylor on board and tell Taylor, you should tell Joseph to end the five swatters thing. But after Taylor talks to Joseph, Taylor is flipped back around and convinced by Joseph that he should be able to maintain that alliance. When she tries to explain why she is turning around on this idea to Brittany, she's unable to articulate it herself and needs Joseph to come in and explain it for her. And at this point, Michael and Brittany start feeling very unsure about whether they want to move forward with Taylor in the game. These things happen days 38 and 39. So things continue to deteriorate. Now, Jasmine is going to clear up some things about what happened in the first couple of weeks with Taylor on day 38. Again, this is important. It was a very good conversation between the two of them, even though Taylor still is hearing about all the things Jasmine is currently saying about her. She allows Jasmine to talk to her about some of the misconceptions that she had about Taylor in the early portion of the season and allows Jasmine to, again, apologize for some of the things that happened and make Jasmine feel good. I can't reiterate enough how important this is, and I will continue to reiterate it as we move forward. After Terrence tells Joseph that he wants Taylor to have to show her cards because he doesn't believe that she'll really nominate Monty, her fake plan, Joseph ends up pitching that he should be the replacement nominee instead. Taylor is reluctant to go ahead with this idea, but ultimately she agrees to it because, again, she's really leaning heavily on his guidance. This happens on day 39. Joseph begins to have second thoughts, however, after the veto is won by Kyle. And it's going to be Brittany that suggests, hey, why don't we just target Alyssa instead? Because you can use the fact that in the veto competition, she took your prize, Taylor. Taylor thinks that's a good idea. Monty, Joseph, and Michael all agree as well. They tell Turner, who isn't really into it, but is willing to go along with it, which is kind of the story of Turner's game. That happens on day 39 as well. Now, the next day, Michael warns Kyle that Taylor wants to backdoor Alyssa now and stokes the flames of this divide. The two of them do eventually talk, and Kyle convinces her that he shouldn't have to be the reason Alyssa goes home. She concedes and says that's fine. Now, it could have ended there, but when Joseph comes in, he is able to flip her back around to the idea of wanting Alyssa out, and she ends up pushing back again. Now, this is going to go around in circles for a while. It ends in a big argument around the pool table where Kyle ends up fully against Joseph, Monty, and Taylor for trying to push this so hard. Michael and Brittany tried to play the middle in this whole altercation, but did so in a pretty obvious way. And that ultimately doesn't matter too much, but definitely informs a view that Taylor has of them. Turner also is not happy with how Taylor ran her HOH this week and feels very anti-Taylor at this point, talks about targeting Taylor in the future. This all happens on day 40. So then we're going to see the flames here of the leftover civil war. They've been temporarily quelled, but that's sort of where things go here. Kyle is not going to use the veto. He doesn't use it, and Taylor plays up that she's really upset with him, but she is actually really pretty upset with him. She pretends to Indy and Jasmine that she would have nominated Monty had he used it. This is on day 41. And also on day 41, she questions Michael and Brittany about not seeming to take sides in the argument, but nothing really comes of that. And also on day 41, she's going to clear the air a bit with Kyle. Again, continues to have conversations with people even after there's been damage to their relationship. So she then gets chained to Joseph because of the punishment from the veto competition and gets a little bit sidelined game-wise for a couple of days. She does tell Joseph that she feels least close with Monty in the alliance, but she wants to try to rectify that, especially now that she feels that she's lost Kyle and Turner and all of them, right? So she doesn't really even count Kyle as in the alliance anymore at all. This is, again, a very important piece here on day 41 and then later day 42. To again show that she really didn't have a connection to Monty at this point, even though she had, when Kyle first came up with the theory, she wasn't even that close with Joseph. She was much closer with Michael and Brittany, and then over time got closer to Joseph. But even still here, she felt least close with Monty in the alliance, and only wanted to rectify that when she had already been pushed away from Kyle and Turner. So that's what she wants to do. She also is going to start pitching the idea of a final four with Joseph, Michael, Brittany, and herself. She pitches this idea to Joseph, who seems a little bit lukewarm on the idea. This is going to come back to haunt her, pitching this to Joseph. Joseph is still loyal to the Pound at this point, and he is not down to work with Michael and Brittany, and so it doesn't work out too well. He then kind of breaks up with her, ends the fake showmance. It's kind of weird. On day 43, Michael and Brittany come back around a bit here by the end of the week to wanting Taylor in their final three again. They've decided they just need to take out Joseph. Once they take out Joseph, they can continue to work with Taylor unimpeded. So that's kind of where they stand. So ultimately, again, Indy is voted out and becomes the first juror. By the end of the week, the 5 swatters are exposed and just destroyed. 5 swatters, no more. Worth noting, in Indy's exit interviews, she said she's very proud of Taylor, and she hopes she knows that she was on her side. She thinks Taylor is a beautiful person and hopes that the game goes well for her. She says that the thing she would change about her game is that she would have gotten closer to Taylor. That is the main thing she would have changed about her game. And this is something that was sort of like being talked about at this time. So something that, again, was talked about in the house and then confirmed, talked about outside of the house in the exit interviews. So we head into week 7. In week 7, Taylor got a 6 in the stock watch. Rebounds a bit here from the 4 last week when she was HOH. The house is going to split. Michael and Terrence become the 2 HOHs. And Michael, Jasmine, Brittany, Taylor, and Monty go inside. Terrence, Turner, Alyssa, Joseph, and Kyle go outside. Inside, Michael is going to target Jasmine. He nominates her and Monty. And so that's what's happening there. Outside, Terrence intends to target Joseph by putting him up next to Kyle. Kyle, of course, though, is going to out the leftovers and get Terrence to put up Turner next to Joseph instead. For Taylor this week, Michael wins that HOH and picks her to be inside so he can protect her. He nominates Monty and Jasmine. Monty is the backup target. This is day 44 and day 45. Brittany ends up winning the veto inside. Michael and Brittany consider taking the shot at Monty, but don't want to damage their relationship with Taylor. That's one of the primary reasons they don't want to make that shot happen. This is day 45. Monty is going to approach Taylor. The rest of the week kind of plays out this way. This is day 45, 46, and 48. Monty approaches Taylor on pretty much all of these days about taking the shot at Michael when they get it. Taylor agrees with Monty. She tells Brittany about Monty's pitch and tries to get Brittany on board as well. They both agree that Michael will need to go eventually. Taylor works to make sure this doesn't blow up in anyone's face and tries to get Brittany and Monty on the same page. We kept expecting this to blow up. It never really did. Was that due to Taylor's work? Was it due to Michael just being non-reactive? Who knows? Either way, this is happening days 45, 46, and 48. Now, outside, Terrence wins the veto and seals Joseph's fate. Joseph decides to reveal Taylor's pitch of a Final Four with Michael and Brittany to Kyle, Turner, and Alyssa. He tells them that he thinks Taylor has a Final Three with Michael and Brittany, that they pitched for him to join and be a fourth, and he turned them down. This happened actually not once, but twice. Once on day 46 was the first time he pitched this. And then again after the veto on day 49. This is very damaging to Taylor's game, as they are going to be very anti-Michael, Brittany, and Taylor coming in. Michael is going to tell the cameras on day 47 that he still loves Taylor. He's willing to bring her to the Final Three, even knowing that she'll bring Brittany over him. The only person he'd consider taking over Taylor is Terrence, just as a slam dunk to win the game. But if not Terrence, he does want to bring Taylor to the Final Three. He likes her that much. Taylor bonds more with Monty over the course of the week inside, and he apologizes to her for the Paloma situation on day 48. Worth noting, they cleared that all up on like day 5 or 6. He knew that it was a miscommunication. He talked to Joseph about it. And here it's finally happening. He's going to apologize on day 48. Okay. Before Jasmine leaves, Taylor is going to talk to her about the season and some of the things that have been said. This is when they talk about 5 swatters. They talk about some other things. Brittany is going to talk about certain things. Michael's going to talk about certain things. But in particular, Taylor talks to Jasmine. Again, one of these conversations where Taylor is just talking about the difficult time that she had in the early portion of the season. Again, advocating for herself to Jasmine, and talks about some of the things that were said about her. And Jasmine is very receptive to this conversation. She says she feels bad about not standing up for Taylor. She says, in fact, my biggest regret in this game, especially hearing you tell me this, Taylor, is that I didn't stand up for you more. She says this on day 50. And again, this is one of the reasons why I really push back at the idea that exit interviews influenced these jurors, because both Jasmine and Indy were already saying many of the things that they end up saying in their exit interviews about Taylor. Specifically, in Jasmine's exit interviews, she is asked, what is your biggest regret in the game? She says, not standing up more for Taylor. She says she respects Taylor so much. This is exactly what she said in the house before she left the game. She describes Taylor as chicken noodle soup. whatever that means. And on the other side of things, of course, after they vote out Jasmine, outside, meanwhile, again, Joseph is getting voted out, and the outsiders are creating an alliance called the After Party. It's time to go to war. The leftovers are done. The after party is in, and Michael, Monty, Taylor, and Brittany also make a final four. In Joseph's exit interviews, he says that he would have sent Taylor home over the Pound if the Pound had stayed loyal, but they didn't. And he calls Taylor perfect. Not a whole lot of indication where he might vote in his exit interviews, but we do get that he would have been loyal to the Pound. So we head into week 8, where Taylor is back up to a 7 here. Turner is going to win the HOH and quickly promise safety to everyone. And is convinced by Monty briefly to stick to the leftovers plan instead of going with After Party, but Kyle gets him back on track, and he nominates Taylor and Brittany in an attempt to backdoor Michael. So when Turner wins the HOH, the outsiders go on a campaign blaming Joseph for everything, including one thing he was really guilty of, which is telling them about Taylor's final 3 with Michael and Brittany. This is very upsetting to Taylor. She ends up Monty also ends up telling Turner that that there was a final 4 made inside and that they were going to target Turner. Taylor, when confronted about this with Turner, says, we weren't really going to target you. We did have those conversations, but it was more about like, if you guys betrayed us, we would target you. But either way, Turner takes this as an admission of guilt and uses it as one of the reasons why he's going to put Taylor and Brittany on the block. Kyle, of course, ensures that Brittany and Taylor go up in an attempt to backdoor Michael on day 52. Taylor talks to Alyssa about her HOH week on days 52 and 53 again. And I'm going to reiterate it because, again, she talks to Alyssa about her HOH week, and this time on Taylor's end apologizes for being upset about some of the things that she heard. She heard that she said that's enough when she won HOH. She took her prize and she was upset about that. They clear the air a bit. They start to bond. They really start to bond. And Alyssa actually ends up telling Kyle that she trusts Taylor more than Monty. They agree that if Michael wins the veto, Monty should go up and Monty should go home over Taylor. This happens again, days 52 and 53. Michael then on day 53 wins the veto. And Kyle has that shot loaded up, locked and loaded on Monty. He's ready to take it. He's got everybody on board. When Michael is going to grab Taylor and Monty, Michael and Brittany, pull them up into the have-not room and tell them about Kyle's Cookout 2.0 comments and theories and actions. Taylor is not on the feeds for most of the day after this. It's difficult to say exactly what her reaction was. The best we have is on the episodes, but obviously I think we can probably say wasn't pleased. Michael and Brittany are also going to use this information with Turner, let him know, and eventually convince him to nominate and evict Kyle on day 54. Once Kyle is on the block, Terrence starts pitching that they vote out Taylor instead on day 55, but it goes nowhere. Monty spends much of the remaining week telling Taylor that he'll need to go after Michael and she'll need to be on board. She says that she is on board. He tries to get her to go after Michael as well. She pushes back a little bit, saying, sure, maybe I'll do it. But in reality, they agree. She talks to Brittany about it. They agree they don't want to take the shot themselves. This is day 55, 56, and 57 because it's a very often repeated conversation between Monty and Taylor. She has a long conversation with Kyle about what he did on day 56. Again, very gracious, very much making Kyle feel good. I mean, she tells him, look, it's not my place. It's not my job to teach you about this stuff. But ultimately, just and this is not a game conversation in my opinion, but just how she naturally approaches these conversations still makes Kyle, I think, feel better coming out of the conversation than he did coming in. She is going to reiterate her final three with Michael and Brittany on day 57. And that's really most of the week. Kyle is evicted. He doesn't really give, I couldn't find any solid indication of where he might vote with his jury vote, mostly because he spent most of his time talking about the whole situation. Of course, I think a lot of people, myself included, assume he would go Monty over Taylor. Not sure that he would go Turner over Taylor, considering everything, but we'll see. Of course, in this week, the after party dies. And Monty and Turner create a final two in the wreckage of Kyle's game. So we head into week 9, where Taylor yet again gets a 7 in the stock watch. Michael wins the HOH. His plan is to target Terrence. He wants to stay true to the deal he made with Turner and Monty. And so he targets Terrence. He nominates Terrence and Alyssa. So when Michael wins HOH, by the way, Taylor, called cold-hearted by Zingbot, which is later going to be used as ammunition against her by Monty. Michael tells her that his plan is to take out Terrence, and she's okay with that. That happens on day 58. After Terrence and Alyssa are nominated, Brittany approaches Alyssa to work together, and they talk about how they can't beat Taylor, Michael, or Monty in the end. That's day 59. When I saw this, I was like, day 50. Okay, that's like less than 20 days ago. Brittany knew that Monty, Michael, and Taylor were the three biggest jury threats. She really felt like that Turner HOH, where he took out Michael, prompted him right into first place. Either way, though, they are still, again, Alyssa and Brittany both talking about Taylor as a potential jury threat here. On day 60, Michael wins the veto and doesn't intend to use it. Brittany is going to approach Taylor about Monty and Turner being too close on day 61. They wonder if they should try to rope in Alyssa. Taylor thinks that they should take the shot at Michael soon. And they talk to Alyssa, who proposes that they make a women's alliance, final three, and perhaps a final four with Michael. They all say they're down. So this is, again, on day 61. But the women's alliance, it was what I would call pre-ratted out by Brittany, because she talked to Turner about the possibility of this happening before it happened. Turner took that as admission that it did happen. And then when it did happen, his false assumption turned out to be true. Maybe we'll talk more about it in Turner's game recap. Either way, it led to a gentleman's agreement amongst the men. They've decided they want to target Taylor now. Out of nowhere, Taylor becomes the target because of all this chaos. She's the strongest woman on the cast that they think is there. And so when when Monty and Turner discuss wanting to work with Michael, they agree together, just the two of them. Without Michael there, they want Taylor as the next target. However, on day 62, Taylor is going to have a conversation with Monty about the women's alliance pitch from Alyssa. She volunteers the information, and he feels much better about her after she does so, and decides that instead he wants to target Alyssa before Taylor. Still agreeing to the gentleman's agreement with Michael, still on board with it. But instead of targeting Taylor, he wants to target Alyssa. He talks to Turner about this, and Turner is not convinced. He still would like to target Taylor before Alyssa. They are both still on board with the Michael plan at this point. This is day 62. She's later going to ask Monty if he's still down to target Michael. And in stark contrast to their many conversations the week before, Monty is going to hesitate and say, well, I've been thinking about the timing. I'm not sure when the right time would be. He suggests that maybe they could wait a week, let him win again, and then take the shot after that. Taylor disagrees with this logic. She says, I think you should probably take the shot earlier. This happens on day 62. For those that inexplicably continue to say that Monty was always targeting Michael. Please watch these conversations. Turner is going to tell Taylor about Brittany's final 2 offer on day 63. She doesn't really care. She still wants to go to the end with Brittany because she's the easiest to beat. But her response to Turner is convincing enough that Turner feels good about her and changes his mind about targeting her moving forward. So Taylor went from being a target of the men on day 61 to on day 63, no longer being targeted by either of them. Turner would now prefer to target Brittany, and Monty would prefer to target Alyssa at this point. Monty approaches Taylor about potentially keeping Terrence on day 63, and she says no, and shuts it down. And that's going to be the end of that. Taylor is going to approach Monty again about targeting Michael on day 64. Day 64, 2 days after the conversation where he talked about the timing stuff. At this point, Monty has been convinced that the women's alliance doesn't exist. And so this time when Taylor approaches Monty about targeting Michael, he again pushes back, saying he sees what she's saying, but he wouldn't want to be a target going into the following week. She says, you wouldn't be a target. Everyone knows it needs to happen, and I would back you. After this conversation on day 64, Monty goes to Turner and says, and she also goes to Turner, by the way, and says, hey, you should target Michael. And Turner also basically says, I don't know. But after these conversations, Monty goes to Turner and says, hey, I actually think we should go back on our deal and target Michael. Turner is not sure, but he is eventually convinced. This is new information that was brought to Turner that Monty introduced. They had many previous private conversations between the two of them where they agreed that they were not going to target Michael. It's here on day 64 that changes. Their private conversations shift, and they decide they are no longer going to hold true to their deal with Michael. In exit interviews, Terrence is not super positive on Taylor. Theoretically, he should be a vote for either Monty or Turner in the final 2. Assuming it's Turner in the final 2, in the final 3. I have been assuming this. If something happens tonight, a lot of work is going to be for naught with the Turner stuff. So Monty, by the way, is going to blame Taylor for not keeping Terrence in the game. He's going to tell Terrence that Taylor is the hang-up, the reason why Terrence couldn't stay. Just another log to add to that fire. So the gentleman's agreement, of course, was made and broken, and a women's alliance was also made and broken within the course of this week. We then get to the double eviction in week 9. We are almost through here. Turner is going to win the HOH. Monty is going to win the veto, and though it takes some convincing, Monty gets Turner to take the shot at Michael, and Michael is evicted. Now, in exit interviews, Michael says that Taylor is gracious and that he would have wanted to bring her to the final 2. He says he gives Monty and Turner more credit for evicting him, though, than Taylor. He says of Monty, and we'll talk about this with Monty's, that Monty is diplomatic. And so where will Michael vote? It's hard to say. But he did say many times in the house that Taylor was one of his favorite people and that he, loves her. So who knows? We head into week 10. Taylor's going to get a 6 in the stock watch this week. Mostly because she ends up on the block at the end of the week and things were looking a little shifty. Monty's going to win the HOH and he wants either Brittany or Alyssa out. Taylor is going to try to feel out the option of getting Monty to target Turner, but he does not bite. This is on day 65. Brittany ends up winning the veto, and Taylor comes clean to her about all the stuff that's been said about Brittany. Brittany is upset, but gets over it, and they try to come up with a way to convince Monty to put Turner up in her place. This is on day 67. Taylor, again, though, is going to unsuccessfully try to convince Monty to take that shot at Turner. he ends up facilitating a final 3 with Taylor and Turner that she likes to call the girls' guys. And he ends up putting Taylor on the block instead of Turner, trusting Turner to vote against his interests and take Alyssa out. So Taylor spends much of the rest of the week bonding with Monty. This is days 69, 70, 71. She's on the block. She's bonding with Monty, and things are getting a little bit... Turner's going to let Taylor know that Brittany's been trying to convince him to cast a sympathy vote for Alyssa, but he doesn't intend to do so. This is on day 71. The rest of the week, again, goes pretty normally. She has that final 3 now with Turner. She's been really working on Monty in a couple of different ways. And in her exit interviews, Alyssa says that she is rooting for Brittany and Taylor to get to the end because she really wants a woman to win. She does also, however, say that Monty is perhaps playing the best game. We'll talk about that with Monty's game recap. These exit interviews, very not conclusive. So Alyssa is, of course, evicted, and the girls' guys, or 2 guys and a girl, or 2 guys and a, whatever. The alliance is created. We head into week 11, the last week that we're talking about for now. Taylor gets an 8 in the stock watch. She wins HOH and she wants to take out Turner. But when Monty wins the veto, she's unable to convince him to evict him, or at least likely is unable to convince him to evict him. This is day 72, day 73, and then here's me predicting the future. Day 79, when he chooses not to evict Turner. She spends much of the rest of the week having relationship talks with Monty. There's a lot of drama happening here. You've been listening to this over the last week. He promises her that he will take her to the final 2. They studied together to make sure that they can beat Turner. That happened yesterday. And she reaffirms her friendship with Brittany, who promises her her jury vote. And says that Brittany says she'll really try to rally as many other jury votes for Taylor as she can. So that's Taylor's game to this point. We've gotten through it. That's where Taylor currently stands. As things stand, she is about to head into the final 3 tonight on the eviction, as Monty very likely is going to evict Brittany. And as of right now, Monty seemingly intends to take Taylor to the final 2 if he wins the final 3 HOH. Taylor seemingly intends to take Monty to the final 2 if she wins the final 3 HOH. And Turner probably isn't winning that final 3 HOH. But if he does, seemingly will take Monty. Although I don't think any of that is for sure. So let's do a quick summary. All right. First of all, Taylor has an average rating of 6 in the stock watch throughout the entire season. If she, so worth noting, if she goes on to win, she will be the winner who has watched the least amount of Big Brother before winning the game since Hayden Moss. Interesting stat. If she wins without winning the final 3 HOH, she will join an exclusive group. She will join Maggie, June, and Dr. Will as the only winners to win the game with fewer than 3 competition wins. If she does win the final 3 HOH, there are a couple others that join that group. She will also be the first winner to come back from being on the block in the first week all the way until the eviction vote in the US. As well as the first winner to survive being on the block at least 5 times on eviction night. Could be 6 times if she doesn't win the final 3 HOH. And again, this is in the US. And of course, she will be the first Black woman to win Big Brother US proper, non-celebrity. Some interesting stats. Now, here's the summary. I'm going to give you the summary now of the weeks through the game and then I'm going to give you the sort of like wrap up on how I view Taylor's game. So Taylor came into the game severely disadvantaged because she wasn't allowed to be herself in the same way that many others in the game were allowed to be. It quickly led to a hate spiral, and she landed on the block in week 1 because of it. Despite wanting to work with the women, they labeled her a guy's girl, and the whole house banded together to take her out. She was saved by a twist in the first week, giving her an opportunity to work her way back into the game. She still did manage to make alliances, though. She bonded with Michael and Brittany and Joseph in that first week. In the second week, she realized that if people didn't want to work with her, she could at least get them to think they could use her. So she intentionally played up her willingness to win HOHs and target people, confirmed by camera talks. That strategy worked. And soon she had both the men and the women thinking that she was their tool to take a shot at the other side. She continues to bond with Michael and Brittany and starts developing actual strategic ties with them in this week. In week 3, she faces a setback at the hands of the bestie twist, with it providing such excellent cover for a big alliance that everyone retreats back into their holes and many of them go back to targeting Taylor as the default, the lowest hanging fruit. Luckily, though, Turner is the HOH, and the damage of the past week has run deep enough that Kyle decides to blow up Postpack and start the leftovers. Michael and Brittany have also been developing a relationship with Kyle, and they vouch for Taylor and promise the whole group that Taylor is solid and can be brought into this group. The leftovers then form, and Taylor finally has solid footing in the game. Unfortunately, the leftovers still want to use the Taylor hate in the house as cover, which is a massive anchor on her game. Still, she focuses her efforts on the members of the leftovers themselves and quickly finds herself decently situated toward the middle of this power group. In week 4, Taylor solidifies her position with Michael and Brittany and starts bonding more with Turner and Joseph, further moving into a position in the middle of the alliance. Meanwhile, Kyle further separates the sides to her benefit, at least for now. But in week 5, Kyle's efforts start turning against her as he's convinced that she will be loyal to Monty and Joseph because of the color of her skin. Michael and Brittany, though, don't buy it. At the same time, she does get closer to Joseph over later in the week and is in one of the best positions of her game as Kyle has really locked in 2 opposing sides with her potentially being able to ride the middle. Then in week 6, she wins HOH, quickly squanders a good amount of her positioning. She upsets most of her alliance with her unwillingness to target Jasmine, damages her relationship with Turner by suggesting he be a pawn, and damages and destroys her relationship with Kyle by trying to get Alyssa out. She also nearly has Michael and Brittany abandon her because they're convinced she's too easily influenced by Joseph. Not a great week, but she has a very solid week to recover in week 7 when Michael chooses her to join him inside. She has just enough of a relationship maintained with him that he still wants to protect her. He pulls her inside and she gets that whole week to recover her position, which she does, and more so. Because even though she loses Joseph this week, she picks up Monty, who is somebody that she had wanted to work on in the previous week and intentionally told Joseph, hey, I'm going to work on Monty. She also gets Michael and Brittany back on board fully at this point. At this point in the game, her win equity is the highest it's ever been. There are massive targets all around her, and she has some of the best jury credentials out there. In week 8, her game takes a little bit of a tumble, as Joseph did tell everyone outside about her final 3 with Michael and Brittany. And when Michael and Brittany reveal Kyle's Cookout 2.0 comments, things turn around. Kyle is evicted, Monty is saved, and she's basically now a lock for the end game. In week 9, Michael wins HOH and takes out Terrence, which is great for her in general. There's a moment where it looks like Turner and Monty are not going to take a shot at Michael, but despite recognizing that it would have been too early to do so herself, she gets both of them back on board to taking a shot at him. Which, of course, ends up happening in the double eviction. And in week 10, she gets closer to Monty and makes a final 3 deal with Turner. And then in week 11, she wins HOH, guaranteeing herself a spot in the final 3. She seemingly has locked Monty in as somebody that will take her to the final 2, but seems to perhaps mistakenly believe that she has a better chance to win against Monty than Turner. A misconception that I do believe could end up costing her the win. So here's what I think needs to be made clear about Taylor. There are almost zero cited incidents involving Taylor that were not shown on the feeds. Again, why this whole notion of like, well, something must have happened, something must have been done. She entered the game and immediately was not given the same space to exist that the others in the house did have. Her every move was scrutinized both inside and outside the house, despite the fact that she consistently showed others the very grace they failed to give her, and then some. She dealt with an extreme amount of adversity in the first couple of weeks that with even the people that would later become her friends isolating her because they either trusted the consensus that she was a bad person or felt like they needed to fit in. This was the foundation for her entire game. One that she tried very hard to build from, only to be met at every corner with the idea that basically nothing she did was right. She was called all kinds of names, both to her face and behind her back. She was iced out of conversations. It took a huge emotional toll on her. Even when she was able to find allies in the game, the force of the narrative behind her being ostracized was so strong that even her allies couldn't help but use it to advance their own games at the expense of hers, justifying it because in return, they were at least keeping her safe. But even this just left her in a place where she was helpless to the whims of players who didn't have to deal with the treatment she dealt with, which was frustrating for her. Still, though, she worked tirelessly at every angle and relationship available to her, carving out an endgame that somehow managed to look pretty favorable to her. For someone given such a small margin of error socially, she managed to be the player who made the fewest unforced errors in the game, especially toward the end. Her biggest mistake by far was the HOH run, a costly mistake that I do think damaged a couple of relationships, as well as some respect that people had for her strategic acumen. If she does lose a jury vote, I can't help but imagine that it's this week, this HOH week of hers, that may have put the nail in that coffin. Above all, though, I think it's her resilience that stands out. And that translates through her gameplay and her jury management. She never gave up on a relationship, no matter how damaged it was or how much the person had wronged her. Don't mistake it. I've been saying it all across this recap. She had to advocate for herself before anybody else had the courage to stand up to do it. Through her own advocation, through her own arguments for herself, she was able to convince some people that she didn't deserve the treatment she got. Through her own work, people eventually agreed with her. She gained some allies, and then those allies, when they finally spoke up for her, gave her the social credibility she needed to eventually counter the culture that put her down, forcing those responsible to not want to be associated with the Taylor hate. I don't want to hear anything about how somehow she was coddled or dragged along. She had to fight tooth and nail to win, to counter the perception. How many people in Big Brother have had this kind of perception thrust upon them and never get out of it? Taylor got out of it due to her own advocating for herself, forced a new culture in the house where the people who made those things happen were then like, no, I was actually a huge Taylor fan the whole time. I actually love Taylor. I'm not bad. And then on top of that, instead of holding court, instead of pressing her advantage, she welcomed them back with open and forgiving arms, turning bitter enemies into people that said that their biggest regret in the house was not being closer to Taylor before they left the house, before they had any exit interviews. It's this resilience, grace, and empathy that I think could be the key to one of the most unlikely wins in the history of the show. And that is Taylor's game for Big Brother 24. Thank you for joining me. I will be back tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, to talk through Monty's game across Big Brother 24. It's another interesting one. Interesting game here. So tune in for that. Of course, tonight, I will be live on Twitch, twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong, watching tonight's eviction episode of Big Brother Live with all of you. Should be a good time. And then, of course, tomorrow night, another episode, the recap of the recap. Tune in for that. I was live watching Survivor and Amazing Race last night. I will be recording a Survivor podcast later in the week after the finale. So make sure you tune in for all of that. I've got some Among Us videos being posted on YouTube, all kinds of fun stuff. If you're going to miss me in the mornings, come hang out on Twitch. It's the same vibe, especially if you like these solo things. It's a good time. Just go over there, hit the follow button. You'll be notified if I go live, and then you can check it out. You can see if you like it. So that's what I got for you here today. Thank you again for joining with this Taylor game recap. These things, whew, they are a lot of work, but I think hopefully it pays off. So that's it. At Armstrong Taran on Twitter. Join me tomorrow for Monty's game, and then on Sunday we will wrap up this season. We will figure out exactly how it's all going to end. So make sure you join me there, both live on Twitch while it happens, and then here on Rob as a podcast after the fact. Thank you all again so much for joining me here today, and I will see all of you next time.
Queen's coming to get what's hers.